There's a lot of familiar faces here. My name is Pacenza. I'm the policy director of HEAL Utah, a local environmental organization. We work to protect Utah from nuclear and toxic risks. We've got some literature and some postcards to send to the governor on the table in there, so once we're done, please go ahead and go in there and take these beautiful stickers and some other stuff. HEAL is probably best known for our work fighting the Green River nuclear reactors, and also our work trying to keep Energy Solutions, a big multinational corporation, constantly trying to dump more and greater quantities of nuclear waste out the West Desert, nuclear waste about 80 miles west of here. It's that work, it's our work with Energy Solutions, which really brought us to ALEC. And I'm hoping we can get our slideshow going here. That's not so good. Well, we'll just proceed off the cuff then. So, what we soon discovered, we learned not too long ago, maybe 6 or 9 months ago, that Energy Solutions was actually a member of ALEC. And as we began to read more about ALEC, we really realized that there was a lot in common between the two of them. And we'll just talk about a few of the things that they share in common, Energy Solutions and ALEC. One of them is certainly using money to buy influence. Energy Solutions, as you folks may know, is by far the largest single campaign contributor here in Utah. In our most recent state election cycle, so I believe 2008, that's great. We should go ahead and hit play. And, oh, this is the kind of view that you can't actually make it animated. Slideshow. Right there. From beginning. That's right. So go ahead and go to the next slide. Yeah. So as we began to find more about, who was ALEC was our first question. Next. There's the right arrow works. This is the right arrow. Who is ALEC? Well, that was not ALEC. That was the first disappointment. So next, please. Next, please. So we said, who next? Who is? No, that was not ALEC. So please next. And we can go ahead and start to put the bullets up. So yes, we began to look at how these two and what they share in common. And as I mentioned already, next, the influence of money, their willingness to spread the cash around to buy influence. Next. Another thing they share in common is the sort of pretense of establishing grassroots organizations. We've heard already, ALEC likes to call itself sort of a nice little organization that brings folk together for just nice conversations. Energy Solutions, interestingly enough, has founded various sort of fake grassroots organizations in states that are seeking to get stuff done. In Texas and in Tennessee, they'll establish groups, they'll hire lobbyists, they'll take out ads, and they'll pretend they're sort of ordinary citizens of Tennessee when in fact they're simply a front for Energy Solutions. So they share that in common. And then one thing they also share in common is a real sharp focus on influencing state legislators. Next. And then, of course, most prominently, their link is that until very recently, Energy Solutions was a member of this critical task force. So let's begin to talk about that task force now and the work they've got done next. What kind of bills has this particular committee pushed, this task force? We'll go ahead and look at a list of them here next. One is, as we've heard already, they have sharply discouraged any sort of action on greenhouse gases and climate change. They have been aggressive about pushing tar sands and oil shale, key issues here in Utah, as we all know. One thing I find funny is they have an end to all renewable energy incentives, because goodness knows, wind and solar power threaten the American family. One thing about ALEC, when you look at ALEC's sort of propaganda, their language is that they embrace free market principles, which is a perfectly rational and reasonable thing to do. But there's some of the things they do which seem to be directly opposed to that. One I love is that they have actually passed, they have a model bill calling upon Congress to not force utilities to disclose their energy mix. And that's a little complicated, but the idea is, should you on your electric bill be able to know where your power comes from? Yeah. Seems fairly reasonable, right? Well, ALEC is opposed to that. ALEC has a resolution calling upon state legislators to tell Congress not to do that, which to me is directly flagging the phrase of free market principles. Free market principles are that each of us as consumers have the opportunity to know the truth about what's out there and to make an educated decision about where to invest our dollars. And that, I think, could be a reasonable system. But when they actually discourage us from knowing where our power comes from, that seems to really show what their agenda is. Not so much free market principles, but doing what their owners want them to do. Another important thing, discouraging coal ash regulation. That's a byproduct of coal power plants. It's real dangerous. They're opposed to energy efficiency because, again, nothing screams hurting the American family like a nice new light bulb. And they also, again, I think flying in the face of free market principles, have actively sought to keep the chemicals used in fracking from being disclosed. Again, I think we could make an argument that the free market should allow each of us as consumers to know what are these chemicals pumped into the ground to free up this natural gas, but they have opposed that as well. Next slide. So we'll zero in on an issue that is key to Heal Utah, which is, of course, our opposition to the Green River nuclear reactor. So we do have a relationship between ALEC, next, and new nuclear reactors. And that relationship, next, is that there is a model bill, which was passed several years ago in a quote, kind of ungainly language here, but recognizes the large and growing need for commercial nuclear energy. In that resolution, hilariously, it refers to nuclear power as affordable electricity. And I think that is probably the ultimate example of the sort of ridiculousness of the alleged free market principles that underlie ALEC's work. Nuclear power is essentially the opposite of free market. It is highly subsidized, it's extremely expensive, it requires either massive government subsidies or forcing ratepayers to pay a ton of money for it up front. So the fact that ALEC is on the record endorsing nuclear power is just patently ridiculous if you actually care about the free market. So why is it that ALEC has done things like push nuclear power, discourage the disclosure of where your power comes from? Well, that's because American utilities are huge players now. Look at this list here. We just had an intern pull this today from the work that the fine folks behind me here on the stage have been doing with disclosing all this. You see a long list of American utilities that are key players in ALEC. I highlighted a few that are good friends of us here in Utah. We have the Desert Power Electric Cooperative, which owns the Pacenza power plant, whose CEO is Kimball Rasmussen, one of my favorite people. Kimball Rasmussen is a climate change denier that travels the country giving talks about climate change isn't happening. He's such best friends with our state legislature that in a hilarious moment last summer, our state legislature and interim committee decided to have a topic on green jobs. They're going to have a session to study green jobs. We thought, well, that's cool. Who are they going to bring in to talk about green jobs? How is it going? What's the potential? What do we need done? They brought in Kimball Rasmussen, the owner of a coal power plant, to discuss the potential of green jobs. And that, to me, is Utah politics in a nutshell. We also see up here Pacific Core, which is the corporate owner of Rocky Mountain Power. Both of them, in fact, belong to ALEC. We also see Progress Energy, which is, in fact, an owner and operator and builder of nuclear power plants. So these are the folks behind these policies. They have nothing to do with the free market. They have everything to do with maintaining their power and profits and making sure we do a damn thing about where our power comes from. Next. Now, I wanted to insert a bit of good news here, because I feel like it's easy when we talk about, corporate and ALEC and all this stuff to just sort of play the woe is me card and just the little people getting crushed. But I want to end with a positive message, and that is that despite these guys, despite the fancy suits and the cocktail parties and the cozy relationships, I think you can make an argument that we're winning, and we're going to keep winning. There are 168 coal power plants in this country that have either already been shut down or are scheduled to be shut down. Coal has decreased from the proportion of the American electricity. Coal's gone from 53 to 42%. New nuclear reactors are overwhelmingly not moving forward. Wind power is growing by leaps and bounds, by 25% on average in each of the past 5 years. A little graph here showing that. And you can see the red line is what we've done so far, and the other lines are what we project to come, even under conservative estimates, pretty good increases. Next. Solar power getting cheaper constantly, going down each year. And you see, just last year there were double the number of solar panels during a recession, double the number of solar panels installed in the year before. We got a graph showing that. So there is, in fact, despite these utilities throwing their money around, trying to keep state legislatures from doing anything good, and pushing them to do a bunch of bad stuff, we're still taking steps forward. So I appreciate having a few minutes. If you want to find more about HEAL, there's information in there, and thanks a great deal.